All right, welcome back. As promised, I'm joined now by one of my favorite people in the entire world, not hard on the eyes, the king of Nashville, Mr. Jon Burton himself. Jon, thanks again for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Sharona. Happy New Year. That was a great intro. Wow.
Happy New Year. What's
can
that?
You just do that? Can you just follow me around and say wonderful stuff like that to make me feel better?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. I had a wonderful New Year. I hope that you did too. Always such a pleasure to have you on. It's been too long. Rather interesting times in Nash Vegas. A lot of change and turmoil for the Tennessee Titans. We're going to jump right in because there is a lot to talk about. Just to recap, Mr. Adams died a few years ago. I'm sorry, are you still with me?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, there's been a little bit of I don't want to say an ownership dispute, but as things happen, you have to figure out what works and what doesn't work. It does look like Amy Adams Strunk is going to now be the owner in charge. Is that your understanding of the situation?
Yeah, that is my understanding, that Amy Adams Strunk is going to take more of an active ownership role with the Tennessee Titans, and I think it's a good move.
I do too.
They tried it with our buddy Tugboat Tommy there for a while, Tommy Smith, but he's just not a football guy, and I think Amy Adams Strunk is a little bit more equipped to handle the day-to-day operations of owning an NFL football team. So, she'll be the acting owner, and Steve Underwood, who was the interim CEO and president, he is now the permanent CEO and president. That was announced last week. So, and you know what? This is important not only for the Titans but for the NFL because I know Roger Goodell and his office have been telling this ownership group for a while, this organization, look, get your ducks in a row. We need to figure out who is in charge here so we can, help yourselves and get your team back on track. So it's a good move. Now there's at least a little bit more structure to the organization.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. Mr. Underwood is going to be the local contact. Mr. Adams' family, obviously, Houston born, bred, and Houston ties, and they're going to remain in Houston. As I understand it, Mrs. Strunk has spent some time getting to learn and understand the business of the National Football League and of football, and that's going to help her. It's really, I've talked a little bit about this on several different shows. As a woman, I am very happy to see Martha Ford and Amy Adams Strunk start to assert a strong presence in the league. I think a woman's presence has definitely been lacking and missing.
I agree with you 100%. I'm old enough to remember when Georgia Frontieri took over as owner of the then Los Angeles Rams, and they got to the Super Bowl that year to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, let's face it. I mean, let's be honest. Women are better organizers than men are, So I think more women in prominent leadership roles in the NFL is great for the league because the league has done a great job, I think, over the last several years reaching out to women and through fantasy football, through women's apparel, through just getting them involved in the excitement that is NFL football. So why not have more women in prominent executive positions in the league? I think it's terrific.
Yeah, I do too. I completely agree. With Steve Underwood now currently interviewing a lot of general manager candidates, what do we know and what we don't know there?
Yeah, so far 3 candidates have been interviewed, one of them being Mark Ross, who right now is the vice president of player evaluation for the New York Giants. He's worked under Jerry Reese for a number of years. And then there's Mr. Sundquist, who was the former general manager of the Denver Broncos, and Martin Mayhew, the former general manager of the Detroit Lions. I'm sure more interviews will be lined up, but right now 3 candidates. And right now the plan of attack for the Tennessee Titans, hire the general manager first, then go out and look for the head coach. But they better not wait too long on either front because, I think we're going to see a wave probably after this weekend when we get through the wild card round of the playoffs. Coaches are going to start signing on with teams, I think, pretty quickly. So it would behoove the Titans to move quickly if there's a guy out there that they really like and want to bring in. Although, for what it's worth, most of the Vegas odds say that Mike Mularkey will actually get the head coaching job and have the interim tag removed. We'll wait and see on that.
I agree with that. I think that smart money is on that, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because I definitely wanted to talk to you about that. Steve Underwood seems to like Mike Mularkey. From what I gather, their timetable is to have that general manager in place by early next week so that they can turn their attention to the head coaching candidate. But on the flip side, there are some hot names that are still in the playoffs. So, you know, and the last time that they made this search, they went ahead and hired Ken Whisenhunt, even though there were some very qualified, very well-respected candidates that were still coaching their teams as coordinators in the NFL playoffs.
That's right, and probably the hottest name out there, I would say, was probably Hugh Jackson, who's the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, they got a big playoff game Saturday against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. He's going to be hitting the interviewing trail immediately after that game. He's got interviews set up as early as Sunday. So if he's a guy that the Titans want to bring in and talk to, I think it would be good because this guy, you know, you have your franchise quarterback now in Marcus Mariota. You need somebody that can come in and build an offense. Of course, you need some more weapons, but you know, you need somebody that can build an offense that can bring some excitement here to Nashville, and you know, you already got the trigger man to do that. So Hugh Jackson is a guy that's probably the hottest name amongst the coordinators that are currently involved in playoff games right now.
I love him. He would be my top guy. He is going to have his pick of head coaching positions. Where do you rank the Titans' job in terms of, and there are a lot of open shots. I'm going to ask you about the Buccaneers here in a little bit. That was a shock.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but where do you rank the Titans' job in terms of all the other open positions?
I would say it's probably near the top, maybe slightly behind the Indianapolis Colts job. Of course, Chuck Pagano is taken care of there, so you'd have to put the Titans among the top, mainly because you already have, once again, your franchise quarterback in place in Marcus Mariota. He just completed his first year, went through almost an entire year as a starter. As far as a guy that can get it done off the field, as far as a guy that can be the face of your franchise off the field, they come few better than Marcus Mariota. And there's some talent there defensively. You know, Brian Arakpo came in from Washington at outside linebacker and had a solid year. You know about Jarrell Casey. You're going to get a great effort from him. We'll see about Michael Griffin and Jason McCourty, whether or not they're going to be in the Titans' plans for this year. But, you know, there is some talent on this roster. And if they can bring in the right guy with, again, your franchise quarterback already in place, they can bring in the right guy to kind of bring this together. The Titans could have one of those turnaround years, go from worst to first. Maybe not worst to first, but maybe, how about worst to wild card? Would you take that? I would.
Yeah. The Chuck Pagano situation is interesting. Brad Wells and I had a long chat about that last night. We listened to it in the first hour of the show. Fun times in the AFC South. You mentioned Marcus Mariota. I love the guy. I think that he's fantastic. Brian Arakpo was definitely a good addition. What are you hearing about Derek Morgan? I know that he ended the season on IR. Is he going to be ready for OTAs and training camp?
Yeah, all signs are pointing to that. He should be fine. And Derek Morgan's a guy that the organization is very high on. I mean, they made it one of their priorities. Oh, he's a terrific guy on and off the field. They made it a priority to keep him in the fold during the off season. So, provided that he's healthy, and he should be, you know, he's very much in their plans for the upcoming year. I don't see any issues to where he wouldn't be ready. If, you know, maybe not for OTAs, but certainly by the end of the off season period, maybe for mini camp and heading on into training camp.
Yeah, he is fantastic, and I'm very glad that it looked like he might leave there for a while, but they were able to get something done. You mentioned Jason McCourty and Michael Griffin. In my opinion, I think as a position group, the secondary has to be a biggest concern to the Tennessee Titans. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree 100% because, you know, you have a guy like Michael Griffin who's north of 30, still, you know, led the team in tackles this year, but you know, getting up there in age and certainly salary-wise is something they need to consider. Jason McCourty coming off a major injury. Still a young guy, but kind of creeping up towards that 30 range as well. He makes a lot of money. You know, Parrish Cox, I thought, had a solid year. Denoris Searcy, he disappeared a lot of times during games. But, yeah, the secondary is definitely something that the Titans need to address because, there were just too many big plays made on this defense in the passing game. And, in order for your pass rush, which I think is pretty good with Dick LeBeau's 3-4, in order for that pass rush to be effective, the guys in the secondary have to hold their coverages. And we just didn't see enough of that this year, and especially with tight ends and seam routes and plays over the middle. It seemed like the middle of the field was wide open all season long. So, yeah, that's certainly an area of concern for this team.
It's never a good thing for your defense when you're free safety, when you consider the type of scheme that the Titans run, when you're free safety, who is a guy who stays in the backfield, is sort of center field, so to speak, leads the team in tackles. That's a good sign. Yeah, that's a good sign that you've got a problem.
You want a guy like Avery Williamson or a guy like Jarrell Casey leading you in tackles, not a guy in the secondary. And interesting things going on with Parrish Cox. I remember after the Houston game, he was pretty upset that he didn't draw the DeAndre Hopkins assignment. He let that be known to the media after the game. So, yeah, there's a lot that they have to sort out in the back four of that Titans defense for sure.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Mike Mularkey, and then we'll talk about the number 1 overall selection.
Sure.
Fans are not wildly excited about the thought that the Titans will retain Mike Mularkey, remove that interim tag, and make him the next head coaching guy. But in reality, is it going to be, bringing in a new guy make you're never going to please everybody, I guess is my point.
Right. No, especially with Titans fans. And you can't blame them for being, a little restless, a little upset, and being a little, wanting a change. I mean, the pros of keeping Mike Mularkey, well, you keep the same offense basically, which Mariota, I'm sure, is comfortable with. If you can get some better playmakers on the outside, some more wide receivers. Obviously, Delaney Walker's a stud. You hope to get a couple more good years out of him. But they need more playmakers on the outside. But the offense itself is pretty effective. Here's the thing about the Titans offense, and I'll get back to Mularkey in just a second.
Okay.
But the thing about the Titans offense, and we've seen this for years, haven't we?
Yes.
They need to establish, what are we as an offense? Are we a two tight end, pound the rock offense, or are we a spread them out shotgun, throw the ball over the field offense? They need to figure that out. But if you keep Mularkey, defensively, you keep Dick LeBeau and presumably Ray Horton. And I think the Titans defense, they finished, I believe, just outside of the top 10 in total defense this year. For a team that won only 3 games, that's significant. That's really good. Dick LeBeau came in and made a significant difference in this defense. And I think where they are defensively is pretty good. You want to bring in another head coach who's going to bring in another defensive coordinator. Now, all these guys have to learn a new system. I don't know if they want to do that. So keeping Mularkey would certainly be a step in that direction. But I understand from the fan standpoint, it's kind of like, all right, it's the same thing again. It's basically, Ken Whisenhunt 2.0. It's the same stuff. The fans want an exciting, wow me kind of hire, right? They want like Rex Ryan, only the Rex Ryan who can win. A guy that's going to come in, talk big, talk tough. Hey, we're going to turn this thing around. Don't you worry, Nashville. I'm here. All your problems are solved. Mike Mularkey's not that kind of guy. But you're right. The front office loves this guy. They love the fact that I think even though he only went 2-7, 2-8, whatever it was, he came in and really, really kind of steadied the ship once Whisenhunt left, because Whisenhunt left with a lot of baggage, as you know, when he was fired. And Mularkey was able to come in and kind of calm things down, settle things down a little bit. I think they like his demeanor. I think they like the way he relates with players. So I think it's a decent chance that Mularkey is the guy.
I like Mike Mularkey. I know people. I think part of the problem, of course, is that every time he's had a head coaching gig, and he didn't get a fair shot in Jacksonville, but he's not the guy that fans look at and say, oh, look, he's been successful there, here, you know what I'm saying. And so but yes, I agree. He did steady the ship, and he can run a very good offense. They're still a few pieces away from being able to do, I think, what he wants to do. But the players love him.
They do. And talking to a lot of the players towards the end of the season, I mean, it's that proverbial, hey, what do you think of the coach? Do you want him to stay around? You have to start asking those questions towards the end of the year. high praise for the guy. And it seems to be the consensus amongst this team that they want him to be the guy because he just has a different approach. I mean, I've heard a lot of things from players, you know, off the record about the way Whisenhunt would treat players and call players out in front of everybody else, and Mularkey's really not that guy. I mean, he's a straightforward, no nonsense guy. You know where you stand with him, but he's going to treat you like a man. And that, what do we hear about all the time with professional athletes, Sharona? Hey, I make more money than you do, coach. So you have to treat me like a man. You have to respect me. You have to treat me like like an adult because I'm a professional. I'm a paid professional. And if you have a coach that can do that, guys will usually run through a wall for you. And it's so funny though. Wouldn't it be great if Rex Ryan actually were a winning coach? He'd be perfect for Nashville.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You know, just a big, hey, you know, just a big lug of a guy and big smile and talking big and, you know, that kind of stuff. He'd be perfect, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
I talked to a lot of people associated with the Arizona Cardinals, and one of the things that one of the reasons why I did not want the Tennessee Titans to hire Ken Whisenhunt was his propensity to blame the players for things that were as much coaching as anything else. And you saw that in Tennessee. I think what got him in trouble with a lot of guys was there was no accountability from Coach Ken Whisenhunt. And you just can't do that, you know. You can't do that to your players.
No, you know what? Most players like a coach that will go out in front of us, the media, and say, hey, it's my fault, it's on me. And then they'll tell you to a man, you can chew me out in private and tell me it's my fault, but don't go public with it. I think the last straw for Ken Whisenhunt was when our colleague Paul Koharski asked him about, you know, where he was this year as opposed to last year. And he made a remark about, you know, the overall talent of the team. And I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And, you know, Wiz is a stubborn guy, and he's going to do things his way. And it worked for a while, but it wore thin with the players. I think it wore thin with the front office. And, you know, this was a move that they felt they had to make.
Yeah, I agree with that. You mentioned it reminds me in a way of Chip Kelly. You've got to be able to relate to your players, and you know, Chip Kelly, Ken Whisenhunt. People talk about Bill Belichick, and Bill Belichick failed spectacularly in Cleveland, but nobody really remembers that. The players don't remember that. Current NFL players, all they know is that, you know, Coach Belichick is wildly successful in New England. You really have to have a track record that allows you, you know, to do that, and neither one of those guys had it.
Yeah, and, you know, it's funny you bring up Bill Belichick because, you know, in talking to a lot of players that, you know, play for him or have played for him, they'll all tell you you know, the same thing. You know, he's a lot different in the locker room behind closed. Yeah, he's a lot different one-on-one than he is in the media. We all know how he comes across in the media, but he really is a player's coach. And plus, players that play for him know, look, if I do what he says, the chances are pretty good I'm going to have a chance to win a championship here, which is what all players want. So he's probably the last of the Mohicans in terms of if he wants to be a total dictator and a taskmaster, his players will listen and they'll give it the program or they'll get out. And most people want to stay in that play for him because they know, you know, I got a shot pretty much every year of possibly winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I want to ask you about Johnny Manziel and Lovie Smith, but before we get there, the Titans have the number 1 overall draft selection. A very bad situation to be in for them because they did select their franchise quarterback last year with the number 2 overall selection in Marcus Mariota. What do you think that they should do? What do you expect that they will do? What are your thoughts on the utilization of that pick?
Well, I won't tell you what I expect them to do because that usually gets me in trouble. But here's what I would do if I was Titan. I would immediately dangle that number 1 pick out there and try to trade down. I thought they were going to do it last year because I thought they were going to go with Mettenberger, but they fell in love with Mariota once they met him and worked him out, and it turned out well. It was a good move. Now, if they have Mariota, there's so many teams out there that need quarterbacks. It's not a great quarterback class coming in, but we'll see. we say that now. We'll see what happens after the combine when guys work out and interview.
Exactly.
We'll get more information about that going forward. But unless they're absolutely in love with Joey Bosa out of Ohio State, I would dangle that number 1 pick, and I would try to trade down, get as many picks as possible, and because this team needs bodies. Let's get some draft picks in here. Let's get some bodies in here. Let's get some good players competing against one another this offseason that will make this team better once the regular season rolls around. That's what I would do. I would try to trade out, stay in the top 10 if you can, but even if you could stay within the top 15, I would dangle that number 1 pick. I would talk to the Browns about maybe swapping. I would talk to any number of teams that are in need of a quarterback because, and that's not a bad chip to play because we all know without a quarterback in this league you can't win. And the big reason why so many teams aren't winning is because they don't have a quarterback.
Absolutely. You mentioned Delaney Walker before we move away from the Titans. I just got to throw this out there. One of the few times that the Tennessee Titans did listen to Sharona. Sharona lobbied hard for Delaney Walker the offseason that they signed him, and he's just been such a fantastic pickup. He has to be the MVP of that team from the last 2 years.
I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, he's the ultimate lead by example guy. I mean, whether it's talking to the media after a tough loss, whether it's working hard in practice, playing hurt, showing up, playing his butt off, no matter what the score is. I mean, he's the guy that sets the tone, sets the example for that team, and I couldn't be happier for him, his success. Obviously, it's tied into the team, and the team's not doing so well. But if anybody deserves to have a good contract and to have accolades brought upon them, it's Delaney Walker because, like we like to say in our business, Sharona, he gets it, and both on and off the field.
Yes, I completely agree. One of my absolute favorite players in the league. And you mentioned it, you know, he holds other people accountable, but he holds himself to that same standard. You know, he holds himself accountable as well. And those are the guys that get it.
He will be the first to tell you if he had a bad game. He will be the first to tell you if the overall performance of the team. You know, when you follow a team, when you cover a team, Sharona, and you know this, there's always those 2 or 3 guys, especially in football, that you can talk to that kind of you can gauge the pulse of the locker room through that individual, and Delaney's one of those guys. And like you said, he will hold guys accountable, but he's got the cred. He's got the, as we say in the wrestling business, the stroke, because you know he brings it every week. And
he does.
I hope he ends up going to the Pro Bowl this year. I think he will.
Yeah, I hope so too. What a great addition to that team. Speaking of accountability and guys, getting the pulse of a team and what have you, let's talk about Johnny Manziel. It's just been such a disappointment. You know, you thought for one brief shining moment, to borrow a sports cliche, that the guy might possibly be getting it. It does not look like he is. Unless Dallas takes a chance on him, legitimately this guy's career could possibly be over.
I think it's in jeopardy, and I think he's playing a very dangerous game here. Now, look, he did go to rehab earlier, you know, in 2015. He might still have a problem. He might still need help. If that's the case, then I hope he gets all the help he needs, and I hope, you know, I want the best for him. If he's doing all these crazy stuff because he wants out of Cleveland and he thinks another team will pick him up, well, then he's playing a very, very dangerous game right now because, you know, from the quarterback position, you know this. You cannot be one of those people. You know, Gronkowski can go out and party and do all these crazy things because he's a tight end. Show up, catch the football, run over people, spike the ball. Your quarterback has to be your extension of your head coach and your front office and your city. And Johnny Manziel's behavior is not that of a starting franchise NFL quarterback. He has some ability, and he's shown it, but he needs to get his head on straight. If he just thinks, well, I'll just get cut by the Browns and go to the Dallas Cowboys, that's an accident waiting to happen. And you know Jerry, he doesn't care. Jerry will buy him all the hookers, strippers, and drugs that he wants. Exactly. As long as he plays well on Sunday and he brings notoriety to his team. Johnny's playing a very dangerous game. It's disappointing, and I feel bad for the folks of Cleveland because I listen to a lot of Cleveland talk radio because, they're just one of those cities that I sympathize with. They haven't won anything in forever. I'm very lucky. I'm from New York. I'm a Giants fan. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm a Syracuse basketball fan. I've seen them all win championships in my lifetime. Cleveland hasn't won anything. There are generations of Clevelanders that have never won anything, and they were so excited to get Johnny Manziel, an exciting player, a guy that can bring in some notoriety and hopefully some wins, and it's just all gone terribly wrong. I do believe he will get cut by the Browns, and after that, it's a crapshoot as to whether or not he will end up somewhere, because now you're hearing from people who cover the Cowboys that there is no way that he will get signed by the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think Jerry could help himself. I think he would give him a shot, but I think he would have even more freedom with the Cowboys, which Johnny Manziel with idle time on his hands is not a good thing.
Stephen Jones he's more in charge now than ever before. He put the kibosh on Jerry drafting him to begin with. It's hard to believe that Stephen Jones would let that happen. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that develops. Lovie
Smith. Can you imagine, Sharona? Can you imagine Johnny Football running around with a star on his helmet? Oh my goodness!
Oh, good God, no, I can't. Well, and it's a pretty good contrast too. It does look like they might move on from Greg Hardy. They don't seem as enamored with Greg Hardy as they once did. I think Stephen Jones seems, I almost hate to say it, I grew up a Cowboys fan. You never forget your first love, people, okay? So, I still want them to do well. I legitimately think that Stephen Jones seems committed to, I think the Greg Hardy thing was a Jerry Jones thing as opposed to a Stephen Jones thing. And I think my impression is that Stephen Jones is committed to kind of cleaning things up and getting a more winning tradition in there. We'll see if that actually is true or not. I want to ask you about Lovie Smith, and then we'll close out with some playoff talk.
Sure.
I was legitimately, very little surprises me in the National Football League anymore, having watched it for a long time. But I was legitimately shocked Wednesday night when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers announced that they had terminated their contract with head coach Lovie Smith.
Yeah, it was a shocker. It came down late, and from what we hear, he was told over the phone, which is so Bush League, I can't even describe it. I mean,
awful.
Especially a guy like Lovie Smith, who's a respected guy in the NFL. He's coached the team to the Super Bowl. He's got a great reputation in the league. And look, if the Bucs decided, look, we can't let our offensive coordinator Dirk Cutter get away, then we have to make a move. That's fine, but you got to do it a little bit more professionally than that. But I am shocked because I thought Lovie did a nice job this year with the Bucs. They were more. I know they were only 6-10, but they were a lot more competitive this year. I thought he'd be the perfect guy. I thought he was the perfect head coach for a guy like Jameis Winston, who I thought showed great improvement from Game 1 to Game 16. We all know what happened in Game 1 against the Titans. He was awful.
Oh, yeah.
And Mariota's out there throwing 4 touchdown passes. I was very shocked to hear that. And I feel bad for Lovie, but you know what? He's laughing all the way to the bank because he's still got to get paid. But I think it was a panic move by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think that's why they've been a losing franchise all these years because they don't have a front office that can stop and make informed, educated decisions. But I think it was basically what you've been hearing. Dirk Cutter was on the verge of getting a head coaching job somewhere. They didn't want that to happen, so they made a desperation move, and I guess they cut Lovie a check, and I would imagine Dirk Cutter will be their guy.
It went down terribly. Players didn't know. Players finding out.
That's just not the way to do business, Sharona.
It's not the way you do business. And there was really no reason unless it was pettiness, pure pettiness. And from what we understand now, it did look like they wanted to schedule a meeting with him on Thursday. Lovie Smith is nobody's fool. He's been down this rodeo. He's been through this rodeo before, and he got way too quickly in Chicago, which is another conversation. I mean, we could talk about.
I know he got fired after going 10-6. I mean,
it's crazy, yeah. But it was a terrible. They could have waited until the players were notified, and they could have handled it the right way. I feel like there was some pettiness there. But, regardless, it is what it is. I feel terribly for the Tampa Bay Buccaneer players who genuinely seem to like Lovie Smith, and you can understand that. And it just was handled so poorly that it does leave a bad taste in your mouth. I want to ask you, I know that you're busy and need to go, but before you get out of here, playoffs start this weekend. I'm sort of excited about the playoffs this year. The AFC team that's sort of hot right now is the Chiefs, and on the NFC side it's the Seahawks. What do you make of the matchups this weekend? What games are you most interested in?
You know what? The one that interests me the most is probably the Seahawks-Redskins game because, you know, again, I grew up a Giants fan. I follow the NFC East. I want to see if Kirk Cousins is for real. Mm-hmm. I know they're at home, so that's a big help, but I want to see because the Seahawks are going to come in brimming with confidence. They've been there, done that team. They've been to the last 2 Super Bowls. They got hot towards the end of the season. They are fully expecting to walk into D.C. and have their way with the Redskins. So I want to see what Kirk Cousins has because I'm still not a believer in him. Although he did have a solid season, and I think the fact that Gruden told him, look, no more RG3, you don't have to look over your shoulder anymore. You are our guy. That helped a lot. But I want to see how he handles the pressure of a playoff game against an experienced championship caliber Seahawks team. That's probably the one I'll be keeping my eyes on the most.
Yeah, I want to see the Redskins play. I think, though, they play the Packers this weekend, and the Seahawks play the Vikings.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I just had an almost senior moment there. But anyway,
okay.
my point
I
being.
do it all the time. I do it all the time. I have to look. Yeah, I do it all the time. So I was like, well, wait, I'm probably wrong because I need to check. No.
No, you are right. But you know, it's the same dynamic, isn't it? Right? The Packers coming in, they're gonna be a confident team. They've made the playoffs virtually every year. But again, I just want to see. I want to see if Kirk Cousins can make a believer out of me.
Absolutely.
And that Seahawks Vikings game, pretty much the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Bridgewater. You're at home, but it's going to be cold, really cold. But I want to see what Teddy Bridgewater does under playoff pressure because I like Teddy. I kind of pulled for him. I liked him when he was at Louisville. I like what the Vikings have done this year, and look, you're only going to have so many years left with Adrian Peterson. I'm sure he's going to be hungry to try and make something out of this playoff run. So how about this? Those are the 2 games I'll be keeping my eyes on. How's that? Packers Redskins, Seahawks Vikings.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Seahawks Vikings game too because I think that it's a fascinating matchup to me. I see and Mike Zimmer. I love Mike Zimmer. I wanted the Titans so badly to hire Mike Zimmer that I could just taste it, and they did not listen to me, and he's done a fantastic job, and I'm not shocked at all in Minnesota. To me, the Minnesota Vikings are baby Seattle Seahawks. I think that they're built fairly similarly. They're not quite where the Seahawks are now. I think the Seahawks are the better football team, but I could see, the Vikings being what the Seahawks are in a couple of years.
Yeah, I could see that. Zimmer's always been a defensive guy. He did a great job as a defensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals all those years, and before that, the Dallas Cowboys and the other stops he's been. So you already know a Mike Zimmer coach team is gonna buckle their chin straps and play good D. And it's just a matter of Teddy Bridgewater, making use of his weapons, handing off to Adrian Peterson, finding Kyle Rudolph, on those seam patterns and in the red zone and just not making mistakes. But, this is a different breed of cat when you got the Legion of Boom coming in. The Seahawks defense, they're not as formidable as they were last year or certainly the year before that, but they're still pretty darn good. There's still a lot of guys on that team left over from the last 2 Super Bowl teams, and so they're not afraid to go on the road and win a playoff game. They've done it before. So I think both NFC games are probably the more intriguing. I think Houston's playing Kansas City, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too because you gotta love the job that Bill O'Brien has done. I mean, the Texans started 2-5, and you're thinking, all right, here we go, the hard knocks jinx again. But they were to turn things around. It helped that the AFC South was such a bad division, and that Andrew Luck got hurt. But hey, that's not their problem. So they're a confident football team. But the Chiefs have been absolute. The Chiefs started 1-5. That's unheard of. You go 1-5 and then you win out and make the playoffs. That's ridiculous.
See, and, I feel like it's the Chiefs' year. I do. The Little John halftime show notwithstanding, I think that everybody knows how I feel about Lil Jon. I think it's the Chiefs. I've just got a feeling. I'm a big Alex Smith defender. I feel like it's their year. I do.
Well, I've always had a lot of respect for Andy Reid. Again, being a Giants fan and seeing the job he did in Philly all those years, and I don't think he gets enough credit for what he did in Philadelphia. They made the playoffs almost every year. They won the division a bunch of times. Trust me, at the expense of my New York Giants. So, I always saw the job that he did. He'd have key players get hurt, they'd still win. And Philly's a tough town, and unless you win, you're garbage. But I've always had a lot of respect for Andy Reid. The guy knows how to bring a team together and get them to play at their best. And yeah, you're right. Alex Smith is still standing, and he's making plays. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes, and he's been more of a playmaker this year. So you can win a championship with Alex Smith. Now everything else around him has to be just right, but you can win a championship with Alex Smith.
Yeah, I talked to Brad Wells about this in some detail. Do you want to make a Super Bowl pick before you get out of here?
Oh my goodness, Super Bowl pick. Well, you know what? I love Cam.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's going to be. I don't even call them the Carolina Panthers anymore. I just call them Cam.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be Cam out of the NFC, out of the AFC. I will go with Roll Tide. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals. Why not?
There you go. You know what? I like A.J. McCarron. I think he is going to win this playoff game and possibly lead them to the Super Bowl. I like it.
Yeah, they got a great roster. And, as long as he plays within himself, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, there's enough talent around him to where they can make a run. I really believe that.
Absolutely. Jon, always such a pleasure. Tell everybody out there where they can find you on social media.
Sure. First of all, sorry for screwing up the playoff games.
Oh, no.
It's been a long week. Haven't got a lot of sleep. Johnny Nashville here doing his thing. You can. I have two Twitter handles. The first one is at NC5_Jon Burton. Let's see, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, and Twitter. My other Twitter handle is at JonBurton32. I also provide personal training services here in the Nashville area. You can hop on my website, www.justbelievefitness32.com, and I think that's it. But,
I'm more than happy to give Jon.
Just Google me. I'm out there somewhere doing something.
There you go. I'm more than happy to give Jon an endorsement. If you've ever met him in person, he's very fit. He looks wonderful. So if you're in need of some training, get at him, people.
Yeah, again, www.justbelievefitness32.com. I love training people. It's a blast. And I love being on your show, Sharona. I'm so glad we're able to do this today.
Me too. Have a great day. Thanks again.
We'll talk to you real soon.
Okay, bye-bye.